World of Tanks. Let's talk about it. So, World of Tanks is kind of an open world, but not really, tank battle simulating. So basically, you can play in groups of anywhere from 3 tanks versus 3 tanks to 15v15 to all the way up to 30 tank open world blitzes. Now, the 30 world is only for tanks that are a rank X or above. Or it might just be rank X, because I don't actually think there's anything above that. Anyways, so you can play on anything depending on the time with World of Tanks, from World War II to the Cold War to modern tanks and everything in between. Me personally, I prefer to play the World War II battle mode, but the other modes are fun as well. Now, World of Tanks, like I said, is kind of an open world, so you have really large maps that you can run around on, and you can either have like team deathmatches or capture the flags or capture objectives. It really depends on what you're playing and what servers you're playing on, if you're doing a private match or not. So there's a lot of different options there for that, which is really quite fun. Now, the one downside that I've had with this game is that there's not always a lot of players active at the same time, so sometimes you get put in groups that have tanks that are several levels above you, which really puts you at a disadvantage. However, the game is still a lot of fun. I personally enjoy playing the tanks from anywhere from the light tanks that can just sprint across the map really fast, all the way up to the heavy artillery and sniper tanks. Now, with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about the classes. So you have a light tank, which can be anything from like a baby Sherman basically to just modern versions of those kind of tanks. They're just light. They have machine guns or like 20 millimeter cannons on them. Not anything big, nothing super powerful, but they're really fast. They're super maneuverable, and basically you can use them for spotting. Then you have medium tanks, which are about your average size tank. Some heavier firepower. They're pretty fast, but they're not super armored up, so they can be destroyed pretty easily, and they don't have as much firepower as the larger tanks. But again, they are a little bit faster, and they do still deal a pretty decent amount of damage, so they're pretty fun to run around with as well. Now, the heavy tanks are pretty slow. They're not as slow as the other classes that are above them, but they deal a lot of damage, and they can take a beating. They have a lot of armor, and they really are just the tanks of battle, quite literally, pun intended. So I personally don't prefer to play them because I prefer to be one of the quicker classes and just run around and do stuff. However, there's also the sniper tank and the artillery tank, both of which are a lot of fun. The artillery tank and the sniper tank, though, kind of rely on your teammates spotting tanks, because if they're not in your field of view, then you can't see them unless one of your teammates has them in your field of view. So while those are a lot of fun to play, it's probably better to play that if you're playing with some friends, where you can have them specifically set up to be like a light tank or a medium tank out there just spotting for you, so that you can heave shells across the map and obliterate them. Also, they are pretty slow. The artillery tank does not have a lot of damage resistance, so they get destroyed pretty easily. So if a light tank comes running up on you, it's pretty hard to defend yourself, and you're probably going to get blown up. The sniper tanks, on the other hand, most of them have a lot of front-facing armor, but not a lot of rear armor, so you're kind of in the same boat. However, a sniper tank is a little easier to defend against small tanks because you're not using an artillery style, so you can just shoot a projectile straight out of your cannon and you're pretty good to go. The artillery tanks, on the other hand, have more of a top-down view, so it is a little harder, plus their shells are pretty slow to hit what they're going for. But still, they're both a lot of fun to play with. It just takes some skill. Overall, the game is a lot of fun. However, like I said before, with the level differences and some of the tanks and stuff like that, it does get pretty hard to play, because you can go anywhere from just a level 1 all the way up to a level 10. Now, when I first started playing this game, you could only have a match that had tanks with 1 level above you or 1 level below you. So if the person was the bottom level, there was only a tank that was 2 levels above them, or if you were top level, then obviously it'd be vice versa with a tank that's 2 levels below you. So it wasn't that much of a difference, and it wasn't that hard to, overcome. It was a little bit difficult, but it wasn't too bad. But now, the last time I played, I was facing against tanks that were way above me in rank, like 3, 4 levels up above me. And it was really hard to defend against them because when you start to get that high, the damage outputs on all tanks are just so significantly higher than on the lower tier tanks that you really just can't compete against it. And that kind of draws away from the fun of it. However, it's not like you're guaranteed to have that happen every time. It depends on the active player base and how many people are available, what matches are available, all kinds of things like that. Now, the tanks themselves, to unlock new tanks, you have to go through and you have to earn like XP and credits and stuff like that. And then you have a tank tree, and you have to go through and level up each tank that you have in order to go and advance this tree by purchasing the next tier higher up of a tank and continuing to go through that tree until you get to the tier 10 tanks. However, to do that, sometimes it does cost a lot of points and a lot of time. So a lot of people will just go ahead and buy themselves upper class tanks. So some of your friends might end up just getting sick of trying to wade through and level up all these tanks and just purchase high tier tanks and just march through the ranks. I personally think that's a little lame, but to each their own. But anyways, overall, the game's fun. It's a lot of, interesting styles, play styles, tank styles, all that kind of stuff. The maps are pretty unique. The graphics are pretty good. And overall, it's not too bad of a game to play as far as like getting crushed or anything like that. So if I were you, I would definitely give the game a check. I think it's a lot of fun.